Like many successful people, Casey Jenkins' career path took an unexpected turn. Originally an aspiring meteorologist, Casey accidentally fell into supply chain, found a passion for it, and now has built a successful consulting business. She specializes in helping companies in the CPG, manufacturing, and food beverage space improve their supply chain processes. Casey grew her business through networking and building a personal brand through content creation and thought leadership. Casey also holds a master's degree in supply chain management and project management. She's a black belt in Lean Six Sigma and currently is pursuing a PhD in business in supply chain and logistics. She now also is an adjunct professor at Columbia College, developing and teaching online supply chain courses. How does she have time for all this? Casey details her time management strategy and the system that she uses to prioritize her work for maximum productivity. Here's my conversation with Casey Jenkins. Enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Beyond Fulfillment podcast. I'm your host, Dave Goulas, and this week, my guest is the owner and the CEO of 828 Consulting, Casey Jenkins. Welcome, Casey.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for being here. Appreciate you taking the time. If you could, for everyone, can you tell us what 828 Consulting is and how it came to be?
Yeah, sure. So I'll give my quick elevator on this one because it kind of came to be probably at the start of my career unknown a little bit. So 828 Consulting is a process improvement consulting practice, but specializing within supply chain processes specifically. So I work with smaller companies within, the CPG, retail, manufacturing, food and beverage, anyone who produces a product space. And then also tech companies. I do some advisory work on, tech solutions and how they're utilized within supply chain as well. It came to be by accidentally getting into supply chain at the start of my career and staying in it by choice, finding a passion for the industry and for, how complex it is and that there's always problems and loving to solve those problems. So.
Okay. And how did you accidentally get into it at the beginning of your career?
Yeah, so I actually always wanted to be a meteorologist and work for the Weather Channel. So I wanted to be the next Jim Cantori, right? That was always my dream. 5 years old, I told my parents I wanted to be a meteorologist. And after undergrad, I kind of got into logistics just by chance. Learned that I really enjoyed how things move, how things work. And I got done with my weather forecasting degree. So I do have 2 degrees actually in weather, and decided I wanted to go get more schooling. But I wasn't really sure if I wanted to take a pivot and go into weather, if that was more of a hobby, or if I should stay in what I had job experience already in. So I chose the supply chain route. And when I now look back on that experience, I actually realized that I just enjoy processes, right? Which is why I'm doing what I'm doing now. But you can kind of see weather and a supply chain as a process. So, weather, you've got things that happen within the atmosphere that trigger something to occur, right? Well, same thing within supply chain. So when I really started to piece it together, I'm like, well, supply chains and weather are kind of the same in that they're a process, and that's what I enjoy, our processes.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting parallel. All right. So being that you work with many small companies that are manufacturing or creating products, like what are some of the common problems that companies in that space have that you have to help them deal with?
Yeah, so a lot of it is not actually having, efficient processes. I'll say that. So within most smaller organizations or smaller companies, and I've done this because I've worked within some of these more startup type environments or smaller companies. A lot of times you're kind of doing different aspects, tasks, activities, components on the fly, right? You're executing a fire drill, you're trying to put out the fire, you're trying to still get stuff out the door, but it's all kind of ad hoc, I would say. And so a lot of the companies that I work with, I try to go in there and help them say, hey, here's your baseline process of what you're doing, but here's how we can make it better to where you're not always having to, fire drill or do things ad hoc. So trying to give them a little structure, but also create efficiencies, and identify any gaps that might be creating risk within the rest of their operations.
Okay. Now, do you find challenges with that? Because oftentimes, like entrepreneurs and maybe the leaders of these small business, they have a bias for action, can be very impulsive, and it's kind of like ready, fire, aim type of approach. And obviously, what you do is very structured and process oriented, and all based on efficiency. I mean, is there a little bit of a headbutting there?
There can be. And I say that as like a startup environment myself, obviously within my own business operations, right? No one likes anyone coming in and saying, hey, here's how you need to fix things, right? But I try to approach it in the manner of, what you have as a baseline and what you've created was never wrong, right? It's just what you knew to do. It's just what you had to do to be able to execute, right? But when it comes down to it, if you want to keep growing and you want to keep evolving, you have to be able to get rid of some of that waste and some of that inefficiency so you can take your operations to the next level and you're not constantly wasting time on things that are not value add. So I would say that, yes, sometimes I do get a little pushback, but I try to approach it with, look, at the end of the day, you have something that kind of started you off on the right foot, right? How do you grow it? How do you evolve it? Change is necessary if you want to keep building a business or keep building, your empire per se. So you've got to be able to adapt and learn new ways to do things to be able to keep growing. And then with that, there is a level of taking that engagement and applying it for future reference too, right? Because then once I'm able to educate them on why change is needed or why you need to close these gaps or how to effectively improve your processes, then they've got the tools and they've got the knowledge and they've got the core capabilities themselves to be on the lookout for those things in the future and be able to actually maybe even do it themselves.
Okay. And so, like you mentioned, you've had a long career in logistics, at a variety of places. What made you finally decide to go out on your own with the consulting?
Well, actually, I was never intending consulting to be a full-time activity. So I had actually gotten let go from my job back in 2022, as most people, and even within last year, most people have experienced. And I set it up and designed it to be just a part-time thing as I was navigating the job market. And it took off. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe this is what I was meant to do. In the moment, I really didn't think it was. But now looking back, I kind of see how it really fits what I want for my career. And it's definitely been a learning experience, to say the least, within the last year and a half, that's for sure.
Okay. So a lot of consultants too, that's the biggest challenge is getting clients, and especially, many people that are in a career transition or, they face a similar circumstance, they go out on their own. But that's one thing I hear commonly is just the challenge of getting clients. Like what were you able to do to make your business take off so quick?
Yeah, so well, and I should warn everyone and preface that sometimes you can have things up and going, but you also have to be cognizant of the downtime too. And sometimes within at least the first year, it may not be as consistent as you're hoping it to be. So word of caution to anyone looking going into this, you've got to make sure that you're always networking for one. That's been a big thing for me. And trying to keep your pipeline full and be a little more consistent because doing contract work, it is up and down, right? The other thing is though, tapping into either former clients, former companies you've worked for, that's been a benefit for me. LinkedIn has been a huge tool with being able to grow my network, put my skill set out there. A lot of people have found me through LinkedIn. And then also, at the time, and this is another way that I don't really recommend, but at the time when I was applying for jobs, I actually had quite a few contracts come from failed job applications where, I'd go through the interview process and they'd say, well, we don't think you're a fit for a full-time role, but you can help us on a contract basis with, we've got this need. So I found success in that too. And some of those people are still clients to this day. So it's interesting, some of the non-conventional routes that I've been able to find opportunity. But that's kind of what it's all about, being an entrepreneur, trying to find clients. You got to be creative, and you can't be doing it like everyone else either.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the skill set. So can you talk a little bit more? Because I was trying to, like you've got a lot of college. You've got like college on college on college, and a lot of abbreviations. Can you talk about your educational achievements?
Yeah, so I have a master's in supply chain management, master's in project management. I'm a black belt in Lean Six Sigma. And then I did just start my PhD in business, specifically for supply chain and logistics. So love learning, love educating. And, I've been asked before, people are like, what are you going to do after you finish your PhD, which hopefully will be in 3 years? And I'm like, I might go get another one. I don't know.
If you're like millions of companies out there today, credit card processing and receiving payments on time in full has been nothing but a headache and a hassle month after month after month. Run Payments is here to change that for good. Run is a tech company and a payments consultancy, not just a processor. They make it a blessing and not a burden to move money in your business and save on the processing fees while doing so. The guys over at Run give you the tools and the expertise you need to properly accept and monetize payments. An entire collection of out-of-the-box payment platforms, gateways, and point-of-sale terminals, all under one commerce ecosystem, what they call the Runverse. Get in touch today with the code EasyDCP1, and they'll be ready to talk shop and run together with you. Wow. So that's interesting too, because many entrepreneurs too, right? The biggest challenge often is time and trying to find where you can apply yourself most effectively
Right.
in your business. Like how have you been able to get so much, get so many degrees and still be pursuing a higher one, get within raising a business or running a business and your personal life as well?
Yeah, so time management is obviously a skill, I will say that. But I group my time based off my calendar. I live off my calendar pretty much. I start my day at 3:30 in the morning. I am scheduled hour by hour until about 9 o'clock at night. I do hit the gym twice a day. I walk twice a day. I take breaks. I've got, but I'm working all the time. But I say that that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted for my life. That's not for everyone. That's what I wanted. So I like to stay busy. But most weekends I'm working at least a little bit, and some of that's just the entrepreneur life. You're kind of always working when you get things going, but some of that's what I wanted for me. But I definitely schedule. I mean, I'm talking time blocks. Like I was joking with someone the other day how I feel like one of those, like, I guess it's like a training rat, when they do like little signals to get them to do different things. Because throughout my day, I'll have something that'll signal when I'm supposed to go on to the next thing. And that's just how I structure my days. That's the only way I can get things done. I live off of lists. I've got tons of lists all around my desk where I check things off as well. But I do group my day and block time on my calendar so I can stay on track and stick to things.
So that's like, like you start at 3:30, like you have your tasks laid out prior, and when you wake up, you
Yep.
hit it, right? And you just
Yep.
the whole day. And what happens if something unexpected comes up or you kind of get knocked off your calendar?
Yeah, so actually it makes it a lot easier, but with as much as I have on my plate, it makes it a lot easier to reschedule things around. I get people popping up all the time with last minute meetings, or, I had one yesterday, or, having to do something different when I thought it was going to take, an hour, and it takes 2 hours or 3 hours instead. And, it's really easy on my calendar just to drag and drop things around to figure out what the next best option to get things done is. So it's helpful in that regard. I tend to plan my upcoming or my next week, usually like Friday evenings, I'll sit and spend some time, like 30 minutes. It doesn't take long at all, just to go block everything out. I'm pretty structured though. So for the most part, there's things throughout my day that remain in certain time blocks. And those don't get shifted around. But anything else, I can usually just drag and drop things within my calendar and move it. And it's a lot easier that way, just to visually be able to see it versus trying to keep it all up in my head and juggle accordingly.
Okay, that's impressive. You also mentioned LinkedIn, all right, in the networking piece. And I noticed too, you've been doing like some thought leadership. You had the 2 minute topics series that has been out there for a while. How important has been like the personal brand of Casey Jenkins to helping you get clients and grow the business?
That's one thing that I okay, being in operations and being in supply chain, I'm not very creative. I don't feel like I'm creative within like solutions and supply chain and execution, but in terms of like the marketing and brand building, that's not an area of my brain. I'm not very artistic, right? So like in that type of realm. And so a lot of what I've had to do, I've had to kind of wing it and figure it out myself. Like I built my entire website myself. I built my storefront myself. I had to learn to code to do some of that, some of those things. All of my content written by me pretty much daily. All of my newsletters written by me. I don't leverage AI. All my scripts for 2 minute topics, how I shoot, how I record, everything's done by me. And that's just been a learning experience and something that has been more enjoyable for me to tap into that side of my brain. Because again, being executional, I don't really use that stuff very often or hadn't in my career. So that's been fun. But I will say it's all contributed to just building up the brand over the last year and building up my name and what I want to stand for over the last year and a half. And so it is important. And there's a lot of thought that goes into that. Like how do I want to convey myself? What do I want my brand to be? Who do I want to be associating with and partnering with that aligns with my standards, my morals, my values? And a lot of that's just been a learning experience in the last year, to be honest.
Okay. Well, clearly you're very independently motivated and a go-getter to be able to do all these different things. Um, do you ever have times like where you're going through these different processes or where you're on the climb where self-doubt creeps in?
Daily. It's so funny because it- you know what people perceive me to be online or how I convey myself is obviously um confident in what I do, confident in what I say, educated with what I know. But when it comes down to it, it can be very easy to sit here on a daily basis because I've had people in the last year tell me, I don't have the credibility, or I'm not educated enough, or I don't have enough experience, and those comments and comparing yourself on LinkedIn or seeing these things can slip in, and there's sometimes daily where I'm scrolling through and I'll see something and I'm like, well, why isn't that happening for me? Right? Or why is that not occurring? What am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? Or how am I not holding up to this? And I think with that, for me, I try to speak truth over those lies, and try to not let those things sway me or bring me down, but they can. And it's very easy to get caught up in more of the negativity than being confident in who you are and what you know yourself to be. So I would say that it's a constant battle, and I think anyone in the position of owning a company or having a personal brand or being an entrepreneur, that doubt can really inhibit from taking risks or trying new things, or bring down your confidence level.
Okay. Yeah, and that's something, right, we all struggle with when you're out
Mhm.
there, no matter who you are, right? We're humans and you have that survival part of your brain too that shouts at you sometimes when you see all these different things and you got to push past that and keep taking action.
Right.
Okay, and also speaking of education, I saw that you've recently taken on a new role as an adjunct professor at Columbia College.
Yes. So actually, I'm going to be doing some course development for them and teaching as well, online. So that's really fun. Never did I think that I was going into the route of academia. That's kind of been a new thing for me, but I mean, it makes sense, right? With how much I love learning and how much I love educating, it makes sense. But yeah, so they're actually starting a supply chain program online, and so I'm going to be working with them and developing some courses for them, which I'm really excited about. And then also I'll get to teach those courses as well as some other business and project management courses for them. So it's exciting. It's starting up here in May, actually. So we're just getting ready to get those two contracts rolling. So I'm really excited about that.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, and so coming full circle from um, basically stumbling into supply chain and finding you like it and staying, and now you're going to be teaching a college level course on supply chain. I mean, in that time in your career, like how have you seen things evolve?
I never thought that they would evolve in this way. I will say that. I always thought for myself that I would just continue to climb the ladder, chase titles. Never really thought that I'd go the direction that I have. But it's been an interesting journey, and I think that can be related back to supply chain, right? We always have our best laid plans for how we think operations or supply chain are gonna occur, but then through disruption, we get put on different paths, right? So for myself, I would say that, I didn't think my career would go this route at all. So that's been a fun surprise. From the supply chain perspective, it's been interesting to watch over the last 11 years of my career to see how, I mean, gosh, it's gone from not really utilizing technology to where technology is driving everything these days, to changes in how the business landscape has really unfolded, to how quickly products are getting into customers' hands, how many risks are more prevalent and disruptions more known than I feel like it used to be, or at least more aware and cognizant of it than it used to be. Um, so yeah, I feel like there's changes on both sides for myself personally, but then also within the industry that's been really cool to see.
For sure. Okay. And if people want to get in touch with you and find out more about what you do, what's the best way that they can do that?
Yeah, so I would say LinkedIn is probably the easiest. I'm pretty out there. So connecting with me on LinkedIn. Otherwise, visiting my website, which is 828consultingllc.com. It's really easy to to find that. But LinkedIn's probably the easiest way. And then sending me a message or I can reach out, whichever, it doesn't matter. Just connect with me on LinkedIn.
Okay. And we'll link all that in the show notes for everyone as well. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Casey. That's all the time we have this week. We will see you next time.